Good morning. My name is Roy Eidrecht, and this morning we're going to discuss the first part of pyramid, con, scams, and fraud. Many people are subject to fraud in many ways, from investing to stock market, things like cosmetics, and different things like that. So with this, we're going to start this morning with the first part of the pyramid, comments, scams, and fraud. So let's start with the first part, and here we go. As you know, before I had mentioned, never trust your broker. There's a reason for that. And part of it is that many times, the brokers or their agents defraud and commit crimes, white-collar crimes, that normally, when they found guilty, they go what they call country club jails, because since they didn't kill anybody, on weekends they can go home, and then they come back on Monday and continue like that until they serve their time. So it's all depends, but there are many of them, and we're going to cover some of these parts. So for this first part, going to give you a little bit of history, how it started, and how eventually, from a single guy named, last name Ponzi, and this is what they call a Ponzi scheme, it became that eventually banks, bankers, representatives, stockbrokers, agents, and all that continue a fast way to make quick money by defrauding the investors. So this is what I always have, this never trust your broker, because you don't know, as you're going to see, how many of them get into this kind of situation. So let's go to the next slide, and the next slide has to do with, we have mentioned this before too. The educated trader typically get paid from the guy that doesn't know, no education and no plan. Well, we can add to this that don't have no knowledge about fraud, waste, and abuse also. Sometimes they invest in good faith, but they get defrauded. They take the money away, not because he don't know, it's because he been manipulated on his account, as we're going to see later on. So this is why we put this in here. I put this in here. So let's look at the first one. This is the biography of the guy named Charles Ponzi. He was born in 1982 and passed away in 1949. He was an immigrant from Italy, and he find out that he could come up with a deal that people buy a stamp to send postage deal to their friends or their relative in Italy. He find out that he can get a discount in his brother, according to him, buy the stamp, and then they were used over here in the United States. He was so successful that they start promising people double their money in 90 days, and then people start coming over, and he lived a high life for a good while before he found himself in trouble with the law. And this is where you hear this Ponzi scheme. They're talking about this guy. That was back on the 1900, right? When he would do this kind of stuff. But other people learn, and when they learn, they go and practice. So we're going to see that next guy. This is how it comes up from the 1900s all the way down to today. Then we got this guy. This guy back in the 60s, he turned around and he's walking around on the sidewalk, and there was a company selling from the garage some cosmetic. He borrowed the cosmetic about for $16,000 back then, and then he started this company. They were cosmetic or not good quality, but he didn't care about that. What he was interested in is promoting sales or dealership. He get a franchise, some is $5,000. You buy this cosmetic from me, and then you're supposed to sell them, just like Avon do and so on. But that's not what they were doing. What they were doing was they sell another dealership to somebody else, to collect right quick $5,000, and then they kick back to him $1,000, and so on. And this is now known as a pyramid. It's a pyramid scheme, but it's almost the same thing of what Mr. Ponzi did. Same thing. A lot of people jump in, and they get followers. They get involved or different other training to improve yourself and so on, and many copy his deal. The next guy we're going to see, Mr. Glenn Turner, eventually we're going to see him. He came and to work in Florida for the Holiday Magic cosmetic company, and this is where he learned this trick, and then he went and...
Have you ever wondered where the reputation of the snake oil salesman came from? In modern times, we understand that this smooth-talking charlatan is in part based on Charles Ponzi. But there was another snake oil salesman, a man who ran a pyramid scheme and a cult, before dying tragically in his own private plane. His name was William Penn Patrick. Today, we look at one of America's first prosecuted pyramid schemes, and the crazy man who ran the show. Welcome to The Snapping Point, the show where we talk about the rise, the snap, and the fall of companies that shaped our society today. William Penn Patrick was a charlatan and an entrepreneur. Born in March 1930, he lived until the age of 43, dying when his private plane crashed in June 1973. Living his entire life in California, he operated 3 controversial businesses before running against Ronald Reagan for a nomination for governor of California. A true eccentric, William Penn Patrick was the embodiment of the snake oil salesman. That brings us to Holiday Magic. Holiday Magic was one of the first prosecuted pyramid schemes in the United States. However, before it received that bold title, the company started in a California garage. William Penn Patrick liked to explain Holiday Magic's origins as the universe giving him the gift of success. In reality, the story went like this. William Penn Patrick was on a neighborhood stroll in 1964 when he passed a man selling fruity cosmetics out of his garage. Instantly transfixed, he purchased the man's entire stock for the sum of $16,250 US. In today's money, that would be over $134,000 US. With an inventory of Zoline products in hand, William Penn Patrick founded Holiday Magic as a multi-level marketing company. An MLM is a company that sells products with the following conditions. Products are sold to consultants who are independent contractors who earn a commission from their sale. Consultants distribute products through their network, hence why the practice is called network marketing. Consultants are paid a commission when they recruit other consultants. You can check out The Snapping Point for more information. So was Holiday Magic a pyramid scheme? Holiday Magic was not just an MLM, it was a pyramid scheme. A pyramid scheme is an MLM that fulfills the following requirements. The only way for consultants to make a profit is to recruit other consultants. Consultants are required to inventory load or constantly purchase inventory in order to receive revenue. The local market is saturated with more sellers of products than buyers. Consultants are required to sell products for a fixed price, i.e. price fixing. So what kind of products did Holiday Magic sell? Well, some of them included lemon face splash, mint honey ice cream, almond facial scrub, papaya dew moisture cream, or strawberry frappe cleanser. Although William Penn Patrick would make millions of dollars from Holiday Magic, his products were not very popular. They were notoriously terrible, disliked, low quality, and he lied about them being organic. In 1 year, he'd claimed that they'd sold over $22 million worth of product, but consultants weren't really selling products. You had to pay around $3,000 to become a consultant, and then you had to buy your own inventory. Whether or not anyone made a profit is very unclear, but knowing what we know now, extremely unlikely. On the other hand, William Penn Patrick was making quite a bit of money. In 1 year, he claimed he made $986,000, and that was a small salary according to him. Although he was a master manipulator, not everyone was under his spell. Now we talk about the snap of Holiday Magic. In 1973, Holiday Magic was found guilty of being a pyramid scheme by 2 government entities. The first was the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, who sued Holiday Magic for bilking 80,000 people out of more than $250 million. The second was the FTC, who found Holiday Magic guilty of violating Section 2A of the Clayton Antitrust Act and Section 5 of the FTC Act. It would be a year before the FTC would finally find Holiday Magic guilty. Later that year, in 1974, Holiday Magic would go bankrupt and close down. That brings us to William Penpatrick's cult, Leadership Dynamics. Leadership Dynamics was a personal development company. When people refer to William Penpatrick's cult, this is the organisation they are talking about. Leadership Dynamics was a bizarre organisation that ran courses that all Holiday Magic employees were required to pay for. Starting in 1967, William Penpatrick required all employees to pay for continuous training in order to stay employed. At these bizarre training sessions, participants were beaten, tied to crosses, forced into coffins, and deprived of food and sleep. Two ex-employees, Gene Church and Conrad D. Carnes, would later write The Pit, a group encounter defiled about leadership dynamics. In 1983, the film Circle of Power was later based on this book. As a result of lawsuits, Leadership Dynamic closed down in 1973.
The Securities and Exchange Commission charged Holiday Magic with taking more than $250 million from 80,000 investors.
You might remember that I mentioned at the start of this video that William Penpatrick ran against Ronald Reagan. Let's tell that story. You see, William Penpatrick wasn't just a businessman, he also delved into politics. In 1966, he ran against Ronald Reagan for a nomination for Governor of California. Unfortunately, he was also rather unscrupulous about trashing his competition, so he was sued for libel. What did William Penpatrick say? He publicly declared that his competition had paid over $16,000 to give a dishonest slant to the poll results. That was until he was sued for libel and was forced to pay over $300,000 to Melvin Field. That brings us to William Penpatrick's third dodgy company, Mind Dynamics. Mind Dynamics was also owned by Alexander Everett. Like Leadership Dynamics, the company hosted professional development workshops with very strong religious and cult undertones. These workshops included mind control and hypnosis, as well as other cult techniques. Although not much is known about the company's actions, it was charged with fraud and practicing medicine without a license. Just a side note, what is it with multi-level marketing company owners and practicing medicine without a license? Why is this so common? Anyway, Mind Dynamics would close in 1973 after William Penpatrick tragically died. So let's talk about that. So what happened to William Penpatrick? As I mentioned before, he was killed in a plane crash. He was somewhat of an enthusiast, he had several planes and even opened a museum at one point. Despite this, he was still a new pilot with less than 160 hours of actual flight time. Unfortunately, William Penpatrick would be the one behind the wheel when he crashed his P-51D Mustang. Both himself and his co-pilot were killed on impact. You can see the full story and more like it at the snapping point. Thank you very much for watching.
He went executed later too with something else. So here's the man. He said, Mr. Turner. One of the books that I wrote about him was The Con Man or a Saint by John Frasca. He said that that's not his book, somebody else wrote it. But let me tell you, with the money he was making, $100 million, he paid somebody to do a ghostwriter, and Mr. Frasca write a book about him and how great he was and so on. But as you're going to see later, that's not eventually what happened. What really happened is that they get in trouble because what they were doing was a pyramid, and when you do pyramid, this is what's going to happen. So here's another group, we have seen this before. This is Michael Malcolm, John Bunn King. Michael was the man to go in the 80s, In the 60s was another guy. In the 70s, the cosmetics, and then now here come the junk bond. So this thing populates just like a virus, and eventually it get down to Wall Street, and then it get into the banking system. And before you know, everybody's doing the same thing because few people go to jail, just normally the CEO and so on, but the employees that learn the trick, they go back and put it further up, with something else. So it's always a new development with a new kind of scheme to kind of take the people's money away from them. So what it turned out to be that in February 2018, Donald Trump pardoned him and he went home free, but he served his time quite a few years. The question is how many $1 million he got hiding some place that nobody gonna get it, and people got defrauded. There was somebody else too, that Ivan Bosky. He communicated with this guy back and forth, and then they were doing insider trading and so on. And there you go again, another guy that goes to jail. He gets fined for $100 million, but we don't know how much money he made on the top of that. That time, somebody else was looking for fame, that he was the attorney general at that time, Rudy Giuliani, and he put all these guys in jail, including John Gotti and all those guys. But everybody's always looking for a name for themselves. So here we got a next one. Here, now we come into 2008. In 2008, the banking system started going broke. Everything, the markets are collapsing. And this guy, for over 20 years, he built the people for over $50 billion. Mr. Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff is still in jail today. One of his sons committed suicide, but movie stars give him $50 million, stuff like that. And for 20 years, he become a head man at the NASDAQ. And every time that somebody trying to investigate him, and you're going to see later, they always were a reason why not to bother him. Politicians were involved, calling, don't bother that man, what's wrong with you, he this and that, and so on. So it's nothing new, but it developed, and here we are in 2008, with another guy practicing the same thing that he was practicing in the 1900s, but instead of postage stamp from Italy, now stocks and bonds or whatever, an investment, just like the other guys in the 70s. Nothing has changed. It's just a new way of doing it. And that's what I want you to be aware to protect yourself from your retirement. Now, here comes another one, also in 2008. Guess what? The Swiss, a week ago, on December 28 or so of 2020, finally the United States managed to get $150 million to the U.S. that he was hiding in Switzerland. Okay? However, he's been in jail forever. He's been back from 2008, 2009, he was put in jail for all the fraud scheme. We're going to see his story also, the banks and the millionaires. The interesting thing is that when we gathered this from U.S. News, TD Ameritrade, happened to have advertisement. There was advertising in there around this guy that committed this crime. Very interesting enough, it was TD Toronto Dominion Bank in Canada that backed this guy for 20 years. How ironic is that now, all these years later, after he'd been serving time, this is when he gone to prison, you're going to see in the video, there's advertisement there for the same company that helping defraud other people. Now this is TD Trade Ameritrade, but this is the Toronto Dominion Bank in Canada. They are worldwide. Nobody went to jail over there. They're wrongdoing. They have no knowledge of what this guy was doing and so on. But I tell you the truth, if there's money to be made, a lot of people are going to turn their face away, their back into what's going on and pretend that they don't know. That's actually what happened. So this gentleman here, he was arrested in Houston, Texas, and did similar thing like that. Now we got another guy. This is the famous Enron, the chief operating officer, financial officer, and the CEO of the company, also defrauded their employees. He took the employees. He didn't want them to cash in their retirement, but meanwhile, him and the other guys were selling the stock because the whole thing was a scam. Even President of the United States awarded him prizes, an award, a medal for being such a good company, and guess what? 2 weeks later, he got arrested, and that was an embarrassment for a president. That here he think that this guy is doing good. But as you see, when they get involved with politicians, they get away with murder because, he's respectable. He's with the President of the United States. He cannot be doing that, and so on. And this is what happened. I'm not making this up. This is the newspaper, the Houston Chronicle, the day that he was put in jail. But he did more than that. This gentleman here, this guy went to jail, was released recently after serving 12 years. This guy, he's kind of old. He's going to have to replace all this money. He was found guilty about 20-something cases, and now they will give him 30 days before he appears in court again, in order to pay, to find out how many years he's going to serve. During those 30 days, something happened very strange, seemed like it coming from the Godfather movie, and this is the guy, that. In the Godfather movie, the Al Pacino, the Godfather on the part 2, he's about to go to jail for fraud and all this kind of scam and crime. And so the guy that testifying, he back out of it. Now he's going to put some time in jail, but he always can speak. So the attorney from the Godfather go and talk to him in jail and they say, look, why don't you do this and so on. The whole history, we take care of the family. And then when he was going to be taken to another place, you see in the movie, when the agent from the government go and see him, he had cut his wrist and bled to death in the bathroom. Well, this guy didn't do something like that, but somehow, with a doctor or something like that near him at his home, he passed away. Well, when he passed away and time came for him to appear in court and find out how many years he's going to get, guess what? The judge says all the people that got a claim on him, that they want to collect the millions or whatever that they got defrauded out of it and stuff like that, guess what happened? The judge say, I'm sorry, but you cannot claim because according to the law, he never was sentenced. He died before he appeared in court to find out. And with that trick, the family kept the billions of dollars that they stole, and the investor got zero. When the government tried to recover some property for Mr. Madoff, something like that happened. The attorneys used more money collecting the money, trying to collect the money that it was due, so that again, one more time, the investors didn't get nothing. The only people that got paid was the attorney. You're going to see plenty of this around, but I just want to open your eyes to see what really happened for investment that people respectable. This is the same guy that they used to shut down, as you're going to see, electrical plants in order to raise the rates on the people in California. California went through a very difficult time paying high rate of electricity when it was created by these guys over here in order to get more money. And what do they got? They got the bill, they never got a refund, and then when he died, it was over. Now, recently, this has happened kind of a few weeks ago, in 2020, just like the 150 million that they collect from Switzerland, it just really happened. And the years later, this is still churning around, Mary Lynch had to pay $26 million to the New Hampshire former governor because one of their agents was churning the account. And what he did was, about a year and a half ago, they fired him. He got fired and stuff like that, but Mary Lynch never told the guy, hey, we found an employee doing wrong with your account, we're going to give you money back or nothing. It's not until he find out that he filed charges that finally then something get done. It's very sad, but it's all the way around in different ways. So here's the guy working at the bank, that is trusted. He got a license and he using his account, to make money for the company and for his commission, So remember, most agents work on commission, and therefore they're going to take their children to college with your money. Always be aware of that. They depend on commission. And therefore, a lot of things can happen when it's tempting to find somebody that doesn't know much about investing. So here where he been declared that we're giving credit to CNBC for this part over here also, like everybody else, where this is the former governor of Massachusetts, and he been in an interview, and what happened is that they're going to make a settlement that he will not file no more suit against Mary Lynch. He's going to get $24 million, and the government, the Department of Justice, is going to get $2 million out of the 26. We're going to run a little bit of video, of what happened when the news broke out, and then we
will pay millions of dollars in fines to settle allegations of churning, unauthorized trading, a story which we first told you about in July. Our Scott Cohn has more on that. Scott?
Involves Merrill Lynch, of course, the Bank of America subsidiary. Our investigation back in July, called Trading on Trust, detailed allegations by none other than a former governor of New Hampshire, Craig Benson, of massive churning by his Merrill Lynch brokers, tens of millions of dollars in trades that he says he never authorized just to generate commissions. Benson filed a $100 million claim with FINRA, the Wall Street self-regulatory arm. He filed that earlier this year, and we reported that the state securities regulators in New Hampshire launched their own investigation into Merrill Lynch and its Boston office in particular, whether the firm adequately supervised its brokers. And now CNBC has learned that Merrill's parent, Bank of America, and Merrill itself will pay more than $26 million to settle the matter once and for all. In a statement, the State Securities Bureau in New Hampshire calls the alleged churning abuse of trust by Merrill and by the primary broker involved. His name is Charles Kenahan. Kenahan was fired by Merrill last year. He is also permanently barred from working in the securities business in New Hampshire under the settlement. No immediate comment from him or his attorney or from Governor Benson. Nothing yet either from Merrill Lynch. Neither the firm nor Kenahan admits to wrongdoing under this settlement, but Merrill has agreed to unspecified reforms in terms of how it supervises its brokers. It will now pay $2 million to the state and the remaining $24.25 million in restitution. Sources tell us that will go to Governor Benson, who will in turn drop his FINRA arbitration claim, making that one of the largest FINRA arbitration settlements ever and the largest monetary sanction in New Hampshire.
And then, to take over Mary Lynch, they were going broke, and this is the result. They were broke in 2008 because they did bad deal and stole money from investors and everything else, all kind of bad situation, as you all know, from 2008. And now those guys still working in there, and here come up some of them. We don't know how many other people might be involved that they don't even know that their money had been ripped off. So recently here come another one from Market Watch or CNBC, from CNBC, that this guy is called Raging Bull Broker. This, a lot of millennials use that for trading. On the day they get $1,600 rebate from the government and they go invest it in there, and they've been accused of abusing, making advertisement that was not appropriate. They were spending over $300,000 a year in advertisement to get these people in, and now they've been accused of $137 million in fraud. Okay, this happened just December 8th. That's when it came into my little. Here's another one. Robinhood accused of targeting novice investors with features that encourage excessive trading. There was a young kid that was trading, and apparently he also got in stuff that he should not have done. His account went like a margin call of $700,000. The kid go into the father's bedroom that morning. The dad went to work, and then he committed suicide. They say, well, it wasn't like that, and so on. But regardless of if it was or not, and he didn't know what he was doing, I still don't understand how they let a person get involved with no experience and no money involved into deals that involve over $500,000. I don't hear blaming them for this or anything like that, but it's questionable how this kid ended up getting killed himself. So now there's a lawsuit for other things, and just in a few weeks they were proposing to do a $40 billion IPO. You buy on that company stock and not telling what might happen. So now, here's what happened. Here's another problem. Now the elderly have been targeted too. People that sometimes for medical reasons can take care of themselves, and the employees or whoever they hire and so on turns around and take advantage of it. CNBC break out on the news of what happened here. It just amazed me how people get ripped off and then they're afraid to call the police or report it because they feel embarrassed and they take advantage of them. So this is what really happened.
A new survey by insurer AIG found nearly half of older Americans are managing their own finances. That could be putting them at risk for financial abuse by strangers or even by their own family. Joining us now to talk about this is senior personal finance correspondent Sharon Epperson. And Sharon, huge problem, but how widespread is this?
It's a huge problem, and it's growing. This study by AIG showed that the reason why more people may be getting scammed is because they're doing their finances alone. They're not checking in with anyone that they trust, not an adult child, not another family member or friend. And if they are failing in terms of their mental capacity, then that is leaving them even at a greater risk to get scammed. The numbers are alarming. 3.5 million incidents are reported every year. Wow. And the average amount for someone between the 70 and 79, yes, $45,000. And if they know the person, that escalates to about $50,000 on average for the incident. 90% of the people who are doing this are family members or trusted individuals, caregivers.
That's the worst, most shocking part, because
yes.
You think of these scams coming as a telephone call where you lure somebody in, not as somebody you know, not as somebody you trust.
It's often that case because people are setting themselves up without protecting the income that they have. We talked to an elder law attorney who said that one of the most important things to do is make sure you designate a power of attorney. There, that may be a family member or someone that you trust, but there's a legal document there that also protects you and makes sure that it is someone that you have designated to take care of your finances. Have that person get copies of your bank statements so that they know what is happening in your financial life. But do not add another person as a joint owner to your account unless you are confident that that person may not then take the liberty of withdrawing funds from that account without you knowing it. Exactly.
Here's what I find interesting. You just mentioned the percentage of the population between the ages of 70 and 79. Mm-hmm. We think of 50 as being the new 30. We think of 70 as being the new 50. When are you going to have this conversation and say, okay, it's time to hand over the keys to the car, essentially, some of these things, especially when we're looking at Americans being independent for a much longer period of time and kind of celebrating that?
Well, it's important to have the conversation and not to relinquish control. Designating a power of attorney does not mean that you're not going to take control of your finances. It means that if something happens and you do lose the mental capability to be able to do that, there's someone already ready to step in, and you're not trying to figure that out when you are ill or when you're unable to do it. So having the conversation as early as possible does not mean that you're relinquishing your financial responsibilities to another person. You should still be in control as long as you can. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that you want to be careful if someone in the family or someone that you trust is coming into the picture where they haven't been for a very long time. That's a red flag. That sudden appearance of a family member is a red flag. A family member who says, tell me everything, but don't tell anybody else in the family. Then that's another red flag. And if they're pressuring you to be made a power of attorney, that's something to watch out for, too. This is your decision. You shouldn't be under pressure for that, and you shouldn't be under pressure to add someone to your bank account either if you don't think that you need that.
What do you do if you're seeing some of those red flags? Tell everybody, be open, transparent?
You have to be open, you have to be transparent. You may, if you think something has happened, you're going to want to contact law enforcement. There are adult protective services in many states that will help you walk through all of the stages that you need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. But I think the first step is to make sure that you talk to someone that you trust, and be wary of some of these scams that AIG has found that are most prevalent, whether that is someone calling you saying that they're your grandchild and that they need money from you, or that you've won the lottery and you got to pay the taxes up front. Those are some of the common ones that they've seen.
The cosmetic, like Holiday Magic, Mr. Turner, he learned it from the Holiday Magic. Mr. Ponzi scheme, he did the same thing. And some of them is by paying money to somebody with somebody else's money. Other one is by selling stuff, but you require to buy a large amount in order to be part of the club. And the reason that is illegal to begin with is because of this. You start with one guy and 6 people. By the time this person go on the next step and those 6 people get 6 more, they become 36. And to make a long story short, by the time to get to this level, the amount of people in the system are more than the total population in the world. So how can it work? There had to be more members than these people alive, and this is what is called a pyramid. And corporations are pyramid too, but as soon as you let the dealer sell a dealer, that's a different story. So you got a dealer and you provide material for him to sell wholesale and he sell it, it's 1 cent. But if he go and sell another dealership to somebody else and they give you money back, then it don't work. And as you cannot even get a dealership from General Motors just because you want one, or the dealership of General Motors cannot sell you a dealership themselves. It's run totally different. There are honest pyramid and there are bad pyramids. And this type of pyramid is the bad one. They use it with cosmetic, they have used it with soap, they have used it with herbs or what have you. And it's all the same scheme, It don't matter. It's just a different deal. One was cosmetic, and the other one postage stamp, and the other one is investment, and what have you. But they all end up on the same place, taking your money away. This is some of it, This is some to be good to be true. It's because it's not true, Something wrong. When the mandatory for you to buy, purchase the product before you can be selling it, that's another key there, If you got unreasonable medical claims, that you do this and do that, and then you're stuck with this stuff. And eventually the bubble goes away, It blows away, people go to jail, stuff like that on it. So here's the guy from Holiday Magic, He was from San Rafael, California, and he got caught in June of 1973, where he had bilked over 80,000 people of $250 million with his cosmetic deal. The cosmetic was shady. The cosmetic was not even the first quality, but you got to buy a $5,000, $10,000 dealership, and then you go and sell somebody else another one, and you kick back $2,000 to him, and so on. And this is how pyramid gets in, and you get defrauded. Mr. Turner learned from this guy, and then he started practicing with all kind of stuff on it. And all of them have been the same thing. So, but selling franchise to sell franchise to sell franchise, however, on the San Francisco Chronicle say that's a no-no. You get involved on that, and you're going to get handcuffed on you. You're going to be just like the guy. Eventually, one day, I'm in Las Vegas, and I get the newspaper from 1985, I think it was, 1987, in August, in the summer. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and pick up the newspaper from Arizona, and here is Mr. Glenn Turner, that he'd been charged for other things before. Now he's over here getting 7-year term for fraud. And what happened, he was selling some self-improvement videos for $7,000. He went to Arizona, Scottsdale, because there are a lot of wealthy people in there. And eventually they caught up with that. They filed a lawsuit, and he was sentenced to jail, him and some other guy. And he said that all along he intended to help others. But this is the same thing when he was selling cosmetic too. He was selling cosmetic for the interplanetary people. And he was another scam that he learned, a pyramid, from the people from Holiday Magic. He used to be in Florida, and he used to work for the Atlas Soy Machine Company. And again, they all have, whether stereo, soy machines, or whatever, it's the same thing. So this is some of the stuff that happened to him. Now, if you go to his website, that is still today after he passed away, they're still selling motivation books, videos, and what have you, $2-3 now. It's not $7,000 anymore. But the interesting thing that I want you to be aware of it is you go to this site, and I'm not saying that they don't going to deliver the product. They're selling it so cheap that it's not worth it. But when you press the button contact, you don't get nothing. It don't tell you the address. They don't tell you where they're located. More likely they are in Florida. And the family keep on running it. I can understand. They probably need money. They went broke completely after all this mess that he created. And you can only pay with PayPal. So when you pay through PayPal, at least you're going to get your money back if you didn't get delivery. However, we have to understand that you don't know where they are, So the web page is kind of shady in a way because of that. This is what they say, that you can download this book and online and stuff like that, and how he raised the $100 million that it came from the cosmetic business and all kind of stuff. But he ended up in court, and he had to give up most of all that money away, and eventually Lord heaven in heaven and forgive him for his misdeed. He did any. I'm not here to judge him. Only God knows, and that is up to God to do. But he was involved on stuff that eventually brought him to court and to put some jail time, and finally ended in 1987, in Scottsdale, Arizona. So here is his Lake Mary, Florida, Mr. Glenn Wesley, when he passed away in August, on January 8th of 1920. Very sad. Very sad how the people ended their life. He lived long enough and so on, but don't tell me that there are honest people out there, because there's always a new scam. There are different companies that have done the same thing. We can say that some of them that have been going away too, Fortune High Tech Marketing, United Science of America, they just go hard. There's not Heart of the Magic, back in 1964, with Mr. Penn Patrick bought that place in Raphael Company, and then it was shut down in 1974, 10 years later, when they grew up, and they were all over the world, and they're still collecting money on that stuff on it, trying to recover where all that money went. But there was over $200 million involved in there too. So Global Property Group, Internal Registry, Next Generation, they all come. So how this happened? This happened because they sell services or product, but their main priority is attaining new distributors. I just, however, made a majority of the profit. So the profit is made by selling somebody else a dealership. You violating the law. So be careful when a friend comes in. Let me show you a good deal, but you need to invest $4,000 or $5,000. Let me take you to the meeting so you see how it get done. Be extremely careful, because it might be a pyramid, and you might end up down in Mexico. I guess some friends that they have called me about it, and there is a pyramid. They're selling cosmetics. Oh yeah. But look, we can make money now. I said, look, the law in Mexico is also very strict. And if somebody files charges on you, you might spend some time with lawyer trying to clear the case, or people are going to get wise of it. And then instead of having friends, you're going to have enemy that they don't want to talk to you no more. So stay away from it. They listen to me fine. If they don't, I could care less. But I'm not about to do something like that. Well, there we have it, friends. As you can see, some of these people have done different type of scams, Some even with the major companies, we just get through seeing the, Bank of America, for example, is responsible now for Merrill Lynch conduct of the employees. We have seen others that